Hey everybody, it's Papa Wigs and Wigs here. We're gonna wrap up our wide receiver rankings, number 30 to 1 here today. Just know again that there could be some adjustments to this as we get closer to the year. And these were our initial rankings, so obviously we had some differences, but let's jump into it, Wigs.
At number 30, we got Keon Coleman of the Bills.
Yeah, I love this rookie class of receivers this year. I don't know what you think, Wiggs, but I think it's probably one of the better rookie classes of receivers we've seen in a while. And I think Keenan Coleman fell into the perfect spot. Uh, they've got him listed third on the depth chart. I think he's going to be their guy. Um, I think that Josh Allen is going to be looking for him, and I've heard nothing but good things about him. He's actually got a great personality. I've seen multiple videos of him interacting with younger fans, so I think he's got a bright future. I had him at 29, and so did Wiggs. We kind of agreed on this one. But it wouldn't surprise me if he sneaks up into the top 20, maybe, depending, because Allen's, he's got Curtis Samuel, he's got Shakir, and Mac Hollins, and Kincaid, and obviously he's got Cook. But Diggs isn't there anymore. I think Coleman's one of the receivers in this class that has a real legitimate shot of, you know, maybe exploding this year. It wouldn't surprise me if he does. But I think we've got him at a good spot right here, right now, until we see more. Plus, he's a good, really good size receiver. I'm excited to see what he does in red zone situations because at 6'4", 215 pounds,
That's a big body.
that's a big body, and and he's got speed to go with it. So I think it's gonna be um, a good year for him, and I'm excited to see what he does in this offense. What do you think, Wiggs?
I think this is a perfect spot, like you said, to fall into. You're landing in an offense where they literally lost all the receivers. It kind of reminds me of the Lad McConkey talk that we had in our last stream, where you fall into the perfect spot, and literally you're basically going to be the number one guy going in. Like, you even got drafted late, and you're still going to be that guy most likely in this offense. I know there's quite a few people who are like, "Oh, how are you ranking like these rookies above like vets or people who play?" And it's simple. You just look at the roster they land in. You look at who's around them, and when you have Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir as your competitors, you're likely going to be the one or two guy, if not just the one guy. Like, there's not much competition there, in my eyes at least, to be the number one guy. I think the main competition is going to be for that two or three spot. But Coleman, big body in the red zone, which is always nice. We saw what people with big bodies could do, like Megatron and those in the past, who just really need to have that reach and have a quarterback who can get them the ball in the right spots. And Josh Allen is that guy. The only thing that worries me about the red zone area is the factor of Josh Allen just running the ball and taking it in. So
Yeah, but he's a good guy to have when Josh usually does that when they're inside the five. Sometimes maybe a little further out if it opens up and nobody's open. But once they get around the 10-yard line, I can definitely see them taking shots in the end zone to him. And to your point about rookies, I think you know, listen, you can go out on anybody's site and look at how they rank these guys, right? And you can go to to any of those other experts and stuff, and you got to rank the rookie somewhere. And these rookies, some of these rookies are gonna have better seasons than a lot of the vets, and it just all depends on the situation they fall into. And really, to be honest with you, Coleman fell into a really ideal position.
yeah, and I think he's gonna have really good success here.
Yeah.
When you're like I said, your competitors are Shakir and Samuel. You should have a good year. Like Samuel and Shakir have been in the league for a few years now. They really haven't like shined at any moment. So like to me, Keon Coleman is the clear cut one guy in this offense. Up next, we got Kelvin Ridley.
Yeah, so I know Wiggs had him ranked a little bit higher than I did, and I had him outside of the top 30. Um, listen, with Hopkins getting hurt and he's going to miss some time, that's obviously got the arrow pointing up on Ridley. Plus, they got Tyler Boyd there as well. Treylon Burke, which I know he's not the huge favor of the coaches right now, and wouldn't surprise me if they end up trading him. Listen, I think Ridley's got a lot of talent. He's a great route runner. Uh, I think a lot of people don't give him a lot of credit for his route running. I think I watched a lot of Jacksonville games last year, and there was a lot of times where Ridley was wide open and Lawrence just did not hit him. And even though he's 29, he practically missed, almost 2 years, since he's been in the league. 2021, he only played 5 games, and then he was suspended the whole year, of 2022. And he wasn't really he was dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression type stuff. And he's worked through that. I think that last year he had over 1,000 yards. I think he'll have a similar type year, if not a little bit better. I think he's in definitely a better, I feel, a better quarterback um, um, play position when it comes to finding the guy deep. I think Will Levis proved that last year with Hopkins, and I think he's only gonna do it again. And now that he has both Hopkins and Ridley, especially when Hopkins comes back, plus Boyd. Boyd was a great wide receiver 3 with the Bengals. He really complimented Higgins and Chase, and I think he's gonna do really well with Hopkins, with D Hop being out as well. So it wouldn't surprise me. I think he's gonna have over 1,000 yards, possibly 10 to 12 touchdowns this year. I think this year I think he's gonna do better this year than he did last year, because I think that he, getting that first year out of the way of coming off and really not playing for almost 2 years, the first part of last year, he was probably still dealing with conditioning issues. Now he's not gonna, he's got that out of his belt and stuff. So I think, I know a lot of people say receivers go to the Titans to die. You know what, that probably used to be the case when Henry was there, but that's not the case anymore. I think their offense is going to have a completely different look this year, and it's not going to be as run heavy as it was in the past. So I think Ridley definitely is going to have a great year.
Yeah, I think he'll have a solid year as well. And like you just touched on, it's going to be a pass heavy offense this year, so you kind of have to expect him to be around that 1,000 mark, if not more. Like just looking at Ridley's targets last year at 136, he had 76 receptions, which just shows you how many times Lawrence truly missed him. And let's be realistic here, Calvin Ridley did not drop 60 balls. So a lot of that comes down to Lawrence. He probably could have had a good 1,400 yards last year if Lawrence could have just connected on a few more passes. And that could have upped his touchdowns as well, because there was a few times, I know you saw some of the clips, Lawrence missed them in that end zone completely, and some of them were embarrassing in my eyes. But
yeah, and we didn't touch on this with Coleman, but I'll say this about Coleman, and the same with Ridley. I think they're both high end number 2 receivers, low end number 1. I mean, you definitely could plug them in at a number 1 receiver. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to be your best option for a number 1 receiver, but I'm just saying that they're right on the borderline, I feel.
yeah, if you're running, one of our RB heavy strats, he could definitely be a wide receiver 1. But,
yeah, for sure.
Wide receiver 2 flex for sure, and somewhere in that realm, because thinking, realistically, number wise, we have 28 people better. So next up, we got T. Higgins.
Yeah, T. Higgins. Listen, if he stays healthy this year, he missed 5 games last year. Wasn't a great year from an injury perspective. He still had 42 catches and 656 yards. and 5 touchdowns. Uh, I think it was really good that he decided to join to play in training camp. You know, had he had he not been in training camp, I think I probably would have ranked him a little bit lower myself. But I think he's in a you know he's in a contract year. This is the final year of his contract. He's not going to be back at Cincinnati next year. I highly doubt it. From everything that I've read and stuff, he's definitely going to be playing for a big contract next year. That's what he's going to do. They actually tagged him though. I believe they franchise tagged him, and he signed his tag. Um, so um, I think either way, it doesn't matter. So I think that Higgins this year, if he stays healthy and he's out on the field, which he struggled with last year, but um, you know the year before he played a full season, and then his first 2 years he missed a few games, nothing big. So if he stays healthy, I can see Higgins, right around that 1,200 yard range, maybe, about 70, 80 catches. I definitely could see him around 10 to 12 touchdowns. Again, he's a low end number one, high end number two for sure. Depending on where your receivers are drafted. But he's definitely has to be drafted, and if he can stay on the field along with Burrow and Chase this year, he's definitely going to have a good year because he's playing for a contract, and I think that when these guys are playing for a contract, you see a chip on their shoulder, you see a little hunger in their eyes, and I definitely think that he's going to have a good year. Plus, I think the fact that they don't have Tyler Boyd anymore, they don't have Mixon anymore. I think I can definitely see him and Chase both getting some more targets.
Yeah, I think having Tyler Boyd out of there is just going to benefit Higgins a whole lot more. And I could see this offense being super pass heavy as well. I don't know if they're really going to utilize Zach Moss as kind of like, you know, a Derrick Henry or someone who even runs the ball a lot. And I don't think they'll run with Chase Brown a lot either. So I think a lot of it'll come down to the passing game. And you got Joe Burrow at quarterback. He's shown he's a top level quarterback. At the end of the day, I think both Chase and Higgins are going to have great years. And I think they're both top 30 for sure. Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, so Wiggs and I are a little bit separate on this one. Uh, you know, I really think McLaurin's probably going to be in the top 20 this year. I really do. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the league. This guy, with the exception of his rookie year where he just missed it by, 81 yards, has had over 1,000 yards every season that he's been in the league. He doesn't miss a lot of games. I mean, the last 3 seasons, he's been on the field every single game. Yes, he doesn't usually get a lot of touchdowns, but he's been a corner. I mean, every year except for his rookie year. Rookie year, he missed it by 7 targets. Other than that, every year he's been over 120 targets a year. I think the fact that they got Jaden Daniels in here and everybody knows how much of a fan I am of him. I think Terry, I think this is going to be his best year in the league. I really do. I think that he's gonna, he could very well have 1,300 yards, 80 catches. I still think he'll probably be around that, maybe 5 to 7 touchdown range. But I think he's going to have a good season. I consider him a wide receiver one for sure. On your team, I definitely think he's definitely wide receiver one material. Depending on how you draft. So
I have nothing against Terry McLaurin. I just haven't seen it from like a fantasy perspective of being any higher than like at least 25 right now outside of one season that I'll give him. The other one was not terrible. Like, yeah, he gets a lot of targets. He gets a solid amount of receptions too. He's right around the 80 reception mark each year, but it's just like a lack of touchdowns in a fantasy league. And that's really what kind of sways me away from him. I think there's other guys on this list that just produce more touchdowns and tend to catch the ball just a few more receptions every year. But it's nothing against Terry. I don't think his quarterback play outside of really, I think Sam Hall was pretty good. I don't know why they got rid of him, but um, outside of him, I don't know if he's really had like that go-to quarterback, and maybe Daniels can be that guy. I'm not sold on him having that good of a year this year. I can maybe see it next year, but I don't know. It's hard to judge without seeing Daniels like on the field in the full like actual game with Terry McLaurin, and he definitely does have potential to be in that top 20 realm. He's shown he's consistent. I just need to see more like touchdowns behind him, and that's really about it. Like maybe a few more completions, but that I don't think that's necessarily on him in any of those years.
All right.
But I would say wide receiver two. I don't know if I'd stretch for one yet. Keenan Allen.
Yeah, listen, I think Keenan Allen's going to be a Hall of Fame receiver. I really do. This guy is pretty consistent every year when he's out on the field. I will say this. He's put on like 20 pounds this year and is super slow out on the field. I just read something about this before we jumped on here. He's up to 230 pounds. You know what? I actually am glad I had him ranked at 35 because I do think that, um, you know, I do think Odunze has a legitimate shot of surpassing Allen this year in yards and receptions. Um, you know, time will tell. It's hard to bet against this guy because he's been, when he's been out on the field, he's been consistent. The years that he's played, the majority of the games, he's been consistent, not only from, receptions and targets and yards. He's also always usually good for around 6 to 8 touchdowns a year. So it's hard to bet against him, but he's 32. And again, 230 pounds. He put on 20 pounds over the offseason. Makes me nervous. So actually, I think he's a little bit high on our list. I really don't think he's going to even break the top 30 this year, because I just got this gut feeling that tells me, even though he had a great year last year, I just got this gut feeling that tells me that because he did have 1,200 yards last year in only 13 games. That's unbelievable. But he also had Justin Herbert, and stuff. So I don't know. I just got a feeling that Keenan Allen might be a bust this year. I could be wrong. I don't see him putting up 1,200 yards this year for sure. I think he's going to be lucky to break 1,000, to be quite honest with you. I think he's going to be more around the 800 yards, range. I can still see him getting, maybe around 5 to 8 touchdowns because, he does have a knack of getting open in the end zone. But given the fact he's put on 20 pounds, it's not like you're going to be able to lob the ball up and he's going to be jumping very high. 230 pounds for a receiver is really heavy. And I've heard that he's a lot slower than he has been in previous years. It just makes me nervous.
I think Keenan Allen's Keenan Allen, and I think he'll be fine. I think both him and DJ Moore have over 1,000 yards, and I think he'll have a decent amount of touchdowns. Even if he doesn't have over 1,000 yards, I still think he's going to be a big red zone weapon. And 6 points in fantasy football is 6 points.
Yeah, I think he's over. I think he's overvalued and overranked. That's just my opinion.
No, I will say this: I do see his receptions and targets going down, which was a fairly big knock because I'm thinking maybe around like 65 to 70 receptions this year, which is a good 40 points that he had last year that he won't have this year in my eyes. But I don't know. I still think he'll be top 30. It's Keenan freaking Allen. As long as he stays healthy, he should be a top 30 guy.
Yeah, you heard it here first.